Hello everyone, and welcome to another Elden Ring build guide. This is a Dexterity build that offers insane levels of damage and almost infinite hyper armor during Asher 4 animation that makes you nearly unstoppable. The most intriguing thing about this build is its Vampiric Healing. In most encounters you will feel almost immortal. This will certainly encourage you to explore and take over anything Shadow of the Erdtree dares to throw in your path. There is so much information included in this guide on how to properly play this build, as well as essential items, locations, and even different stats templates for more convenient playstyle. So without any further delay, let's get started. First, let's take a look at the Asher 4 we are using for this build, the Spinning Gravity Thrust. This will let you fly in the air and spin a charge into enemies, dealing multiple attacks in quick succession. And just before the animation ends, you can tap the skill button again to perform another spin attack with a landing final slash that can knock back enemies. Because we get to attack multiple times during spinning gravity, this gives us an excellent opportunity to apply any status effect like bleed or cold. Using the spinning gravity thrust with a bleed clothed sword will let you drill holes in your enemies and easily decimate most bosses. Not to forget that we'll be able to greatly boost our damage using items that empower successive attacks like Millicent's Prosthesis and Thorny Cracked Tear. Using these items while spinning will make you reach high levels of attack power that is simply not possible with any other build. However, I think the most powerful thing about this Asher 4 is how much ridiculous hyper armor you get during the spinning gravity animation. It feels almost impossible to knock you out of the animation once you have started spinning. Being unstoppable during spinning gravity means you will be able to unleash the full scale of your damage without interruption, but also means you are likely to trade damage in the process. This, however, gives us an excellent opportunity to take advantage of Malenia Greatrune. While under the effect of Malenia Greatrune, the game gives you a brief window to restore all the damage you recently took. This works best with weapon skills with fast attacks like Ayushe's Dancing Blade, Double Slash, and Spinning Gravity Thrust in our case. Malenia Greatrune will certainly make you nearly immortal in most encounters. However, be mindful that while Malenia Greatrune is active, all healing from the Flask of Crimson Tears is reduced by 30%. I think the only downside of Spinning Gravity Thrust is SFP consumption. It requires 26 FP for the initial spin and an additional 12 for the follow-up. However, we can compensate by using the Carian Filigreed Crest Talisman. It will reduce the FP consumption of Spinning Gravity Thrust by 25%. Alongside, you can use the Sacrificial Axe. Every time you defeat an enemy while the axe is equipped, you'll get a small amount of FP back. You don't need to defeat enemies with the axe, but just having it equipped is enough to benefit from its passive effect. This is great while roaming and clearing dungeons, but obviously worthless in boss fights. To obtain Spinning Gravity Thrust Asher 4, you have to remove it from its original weapon, the Sword Lance. First, you must defeat Commander Gaius and then trade his remembrance with Enya at the Round Table Hold to buy the Sword Lance. You can access this boss fight from the Shadowkeep back section. It's a little bit tricky to find your way there. First, you need to come to this point near Moor's Ruins in Scadu Altus. Jump down to the underground area and then climb the ladder to reach Bonnie Village. From there, head north until you reach a tunnel over here that will get you to Shadowkeep Church District. Navigate your way until you reach the elevator that takes you to Storehouse back section Site of Grace. You can jump down to unlock the storehouse first floor Site of Grace because you will need it later to grab more items for this build. From storehouse back section Site of Grace, follow this route to easily reach Commander Guys. If you need help defeating him, please check out my channel. I have plenty of builds that can easily take him out, especially my latest build, the Sanguine Witch. Now that we have covered the Spinning Gravity Thrust Ashe 4, we need a strong weapon to use it. You can apply Spinning Gravity Thrust to large and colossal swords, including great katanas. One of the best weapons for this build is the Fire Knight's Greatsword. It has an exceptional reach and impressive speed. Colossal swords generally provide great hyper armor, so you are not easily interrupted while using them. The typical drawback is their slow attack speed, but the Fire Knight's Greatsword offers the best of both worlds, combining the impressive hyper armor of a colossal sword with exceptional speed and reach. I especially enjoy the run R1 because the long speed can just delete multiple enemies at the same time, and the charged R2 can be extremely useful after knocking back enemies with Spinning Gravity Thrust. It also comes with innate fire damage, so you get to deal additional elemental damage every time you swing the weapon. Now, when it comes to the infusion, despite having higher strength requirements, the Fire Knight's Greatsword actually scales a lot better with dexterity over strength and phase. So, if you are at level 150 or less, you are better off with the Keen Infusion. However, if you decided to take the build beyond 150, you are going to use the Quality Infusion for better attack power. You can farm the Fire Knight's Greatsword from the Red Knights roaming the Shadow Keep. The best location is riding the elevator down from the storehouse first floor Site of Grace and keep farming the Red Knight down there. If you defeated the Knight and he didn't drop the weapon, step on the elevator panel and then teleport back to the previous Site of Grace to speed up the farming process. Of course, it will help if you have items that boost your drop chance as well as having high arcane investment to boost item discovery rate. Until you obtain the Fire Knight's Greatsword, you can use the Flamberg Greatsword from Redmane Castle in Caelid. But hold on, the Fire Knight's Greatsword does not come with innate bleed build-up, and now we are using physical infusion. How exactly are we going to trigger blood loss with no bleed weapon? The answer comes with the Bloodflame Blade incantation. This impressive weapon buff will give you a very strong bleed build-up while boosting your weapon damage for 1 minute. Be mindful, if you decided to use the Bloodflame Blade incantation, you will not need to invest in the Arcane attribute at all. Arcane will have absolutely no effect over the bleed build-up granted by this incantation. However, if you are interested in more convenient playstyle, you can simply go with the Blood Infusion. You will certainly have a better bleed build-up, but slightly less attack power. Both blade styles are valid, and later I will provide you with SAS templates for both of them. If you decide to use Bloodflame Blade incantation, you can use the Dragon Communion seal to cast it. It doesn't really matter which seal you are using, but this one has 0 weight and we already have the necessary stats to use it. You can obtain the Bloodflame Blade incantation from a teardrop scarab near Rose Church in Lorenia of the Lakes. We are also using Flame Grant Me Strength incantation to boost all our physical and fire damage. Use the Golden Vow Ashe 4 on the Sacrificial Axe to increase both your damage done and damage negation for 45 seconds. Although you could also use the new Golden Vow consumables for a slightly better buff, but you do need to gather materials to craft them. You can also use Boiled Crab consumables to increase your damage negation, although it doesn't stack with Flame Grant Me Strength incantation effect. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to use Malenia Greatrune to give ourselves this insane life steal effect, but don't forget to activate it using the Rune Arc consumable. For the Talismans, use Shard of Alexander to increase Spinning Gravity Thrust damage by 15%. Lord Blood's Exaltation will boost your attack bar by 20% for 20 seconds after you trigger Blood Loss. Rotting Winged Sword Insignia will increase your attack power relative to the number of successive attacks you land. Using Spinning Gravity Thrust, you will be able to reach the final attack power tier this talisman has to offer at 13% extra attack power. Millicent's Prosthesis behaves exactly like Rotting Winged Sword Insignia, but with slightly less effectiveness. Those are your main damage dealing options. However, you might want to consider using the Carian Filigreed Crest to reduce the FP consumption of Spinning Gravity Thrust by 25%. You can also use Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman to reduce all physical damage taken by 20. Godskin Swaddling Cloth is an excellent option if you want to enhance that Vampiric Healing aspect of this build. If you are troubled by Malenia Greatrune Crimson Flask Healing Reduction, you can use the Crimson Seed Talisman to increase the Crimson Flask Healing by 20%. For the armor, we are using the Rakshasa set to increase our damage output by 2% per piece, but it will also increase your damage taken by an equal amount. Perhaps for the helm, you might want to consider the white mask for better attack power after you trigger Blood Loss. To obtain the Rakshasa armor set, you have to defeat Rakshasa in Eastern Nameless Mausoleum. To reach this location, take the elevator down from Storehouse first floor Site of Grace. Go past the Red Knight and go left. Climb down the ladder, enter the room concealed by the waterfall, and use the ladder inside to reach Runes of Ant. From this point, just follow the cliffside until you reach the bottom of the chasm, enter the mausoleum and defeat the mini-boss inside to obtain the Rakshasa set. For the Flask of Wondrous Physick, use Thorny Cracked Tear to boost your attack power relative to the number of successive attacks you land, similar to Rotting Winged Sword Insignia and Millicent's Prosthesis Talismans. For the second slot, you can use the Opaline Heart Tear to increase all your damage negation by 15% for 3 minutes. If you want something to further boost your damage output, you can use the new Blood-Sucking Cracked Tear. This will boost your attack bar by 20% for 3 minutes, but it will drain 1% of your maximum HP per second for the duration. However, you can use Bestial Vitality to compensate for some of that negative side effect. You can obtain the Blood-Sucking Cracked Tear by defeating the Fernance Golem located in Ruins of Ant. He is originally dormant, but you can wake him up by throwing a hefty Fernance pot inside his head. I was using the Samurai starter class, but the most optimal starter class for this build is likely the Prophet. Please make sure to check my recent video for Shadow of the Erdtree starter guide to greatly increase both your damage done and damage negation in less than 1 hour and without having to fight anything. At level 150 we have 60 vigor. This should be more than enough to tackle the DLC, but don't bother going beyond 60, it is simply not worth it. 25 mind to have enough FP to cast Spinning Gravity Thrust a couple of times. If you have issues with FP, you can always use Carian Filigreed Talisman. 31 endurance to have medium roll with our current equipment load. I know 15 strength is not enough to use the Fire Knight's Greatsword, but since we are going to two-hand the weapon anyway, this will multiply our strength score by 1.5 to meet the strength requirement at 22. As I mentioned earlier, the Fire Knight's Greatsword scales a lot better with dexterity over strength, especially when you infuse it with the Keen Affinity. So while you are using the Keen Infusion, more dexterity equals more damage. The Prophet class starts with enough face and arcane to cast all the necessary incantations we mentioned in this build, like Bloodflame Blade and Flame Granting Strength. I always get asked what my stats should look like beyond 150, so here is a stats template at level 200. At this point, you should change the Keen Infusion and use the Quality Infusion instead, then equally boost your Dexterity and Strength score until you reach the hard cap at 99 in both attributes. If you are wondering why we swapped the Keen Infusion with the Quality Infusion, this is because there was so little damage to gain by investing in Dexterity after reaching the soft cap at 80. However, by swapping to Quality Infusion, you will gain a lot more damage by investing in both Strength and Dexterity. As I mentioned before, here is your stats template if you decided to adopt more convenient play style by using the Blood Infusion instead of the Keen Infusion, so you don't have to constantly apply Blood Flame buff to your weapon. With this version of the build, you will have to focus on Arcane and Dexterity to get the most damage out of your build. Before we conclude this guide, I want to mention that a lot of people reported that removing Spinning Gravity Thrust from its original weapon and using it on a completely different one could potentially be a bug since the Ash of War was taken from a Remembrance weapon. However, I don't think this is the case. Despite obtaining the Spinning Gravity Thrust original weapon from the Remembrance of Guides, it is still a regular weapon and not a unique one. You can confirm this if you attempt to upgrade the weapon. You will see it requires regular smithing stones to upgrade and not somber smithing stones. Taking Ash of War from regular weapons is the norm in Elden Ring, so I don't think this is a bug and you should not be worried about this being patched in the future. I believe this concludes this guide. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this guide and the information included helpful. If you have any ideas to further improve this build, please don't hesitate to share. And if you have any requests for future Elden Ring content, please let me know. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great day.